377A. I don't know. Over the last 10 years, there have been a number of efforts to repeal 377A, and I thought we should have a look at how it all began with the first big campaign to repeal it back in 2007. And so, with me here, I have, 3 guests and a surprise guest. No, 3 guests and 3 unsurprising guests and 1 surprising guest, okay? Yes, we have, a lot of them are lawyers, legally trained. Okay, we've got George Hwang, who's a lawyer. Joshua Tan, another lawyer. Tan Joo-Him, who is on the board of AWARE, and who is on the board of AWARE and was the president of AWARE 10 years ago. And we have someone who is also involved in the campaign, and who she just confirmed her attendance this morning. It's Neo Swee Lin, who is also legally trained. So all of you are legal, huh?
Barely.
Okay. So yeah, I think we're going to need 2 mics for this because it's very strange for me to be on the stage because it should be really George and the others 2 are on the stage. But okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by trying to remember what exactly happened 10 years ago. So George, hey, how did this? What were you doing 10 years ago when the campaign began? And get up on stage.
Okay, I was lawyering 10 years ago. What happened was actually we just there was sort of a town hall meeting by the NGOs, and my church, the Free Community Church of Singapore, went. So I went with Susan, who unfortunately is not free to come here today. So we attended it and we thought that it was terribly unfair because there was discrimination involved. Yes.
Oh, do you want to screen those?
Yeah.
Yes.
So originally, prior to that, Section 377. Just go back to the first one, please. Yes. This is the original Section 377.
Shall I read it out?
Yes, please.
Okay, unnatural offences, 377. Whoever voluntarily has carnal intercourse against the order of nature with any man, woman, or animals shall be punished with imprisonment for life, or with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 10 years, and shall also be liable to fine.
Okay, and then you have 377A, introduced in 1938 in Singapore.
Outrages on decency. Any male person who, in public or private, commits or abets the commission of, or procures or attempts to procure the commission by any male person of, any act of gross indecency with another male person, shall be punished with imprisonment for a term which may extend to 2 years.
Right, what happened was when during the meeting, we discovered that they were going to abolish 377 and replace it with 377, a new one, which is for necrophilia, and then penetration.
Sexual penetration of a corpse, 377. Any man who penetrates with his penis, the vagina, anus, or mouth, as the case may be, of a human corpse, shall be guilty of an offence. I don't think we need to go into detail.
Yeah, but what's interesting is the offence gives the judge, and don't forget about subsection 3 because you make someone do it, is that the judge has the discretion either to jail you or to impose a fine or. And then 377B was also introduced, and that was of bestiality, and it's almost the same.
Oh yeah, any person who penetrates with his penis, the vagina, anus of any orifice of animal, etc. Yeah, okay.
So they sandwiched Section 377A, retained it and sandwiched in between this to bestiality and necrophilia. So I don't know in which order 377A is supposed to be in.
Hey, but I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit, Actually, yeah, could we just have one more person on stage? It feels a bit lonely up here.
Yes, it is.
Come on. Come on. Yay! Okay. Oh, okay, I realized I forgot to clarify something. Are all of you being okay to be photographed at this event?
You ask now.
Yeah?
Yes, right.
Okay, now all four of you are okay. So it's fine to take photographs of the front of the room, but don't take photographs of the crowd unless because there are some people here who may not be comfortable with their faces appearing in social media. Okay. Hashtag IndigNationSG if you want to post the pictures. Okay. Sorry. All right. Okay. So okay. Like I said, I think we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're not really talking about why they were considering getting rid of the original 377.
Okay, maybe Sulin, but part of it I wasn't in Singapore. When Sulin was here, maybe you could say a little bit about the reason.
Why did you repeal 377?
Yeah.
Why were they just? The thing about 377 is that it actually made sodomy illegal for everyone. So if you were a man having butt sex with a woman, that was also illegal. If you were
oral sex.
Yeah, oral sex as well.
The law before that is if you have oral sex without sexual intercourse, you are guilty of an offence under 377.
Yeah, and I think there was a case where, was it a police officer who?
That's right.
Yeah, wait, I don't remember this properly. Like, who remembers the case?
I only remember, to be honest, I didn't know that much about it at the time, but I know a lot about it now. I had to do a lot of research to joggle my memory, because 10 years ago, it's a long time ago. What I read about online was that there was a case of a policeman who had consensual oral sex with a girl who was 16 years old, and he was charged under 377, and he was in prison for a couple of years because the law actually says that you can't have oral sex or anal sex without then having intercourse, it leading to coitus, and then, I don't know, maybe you had an orgasm, I don't know.
So you mean anal and oral sex for heterosexuals was legal as foreplay?
No, was not legal either.
Okay.
As foreplay, right? As foreplay, yes, correct. As foreplay, as long as you have the afterplay.
Also, foreplay, okay.
I think so, I don't know.
You can have oral sex per se. You cannot just have oral sex. You must have coitus.
Wait, so actually someone had cleared up that it's legal to have oral sex as foreplay?
Yes.
Really? Huh. Okay. So my parents were criminals.
Yeah. So I think I shouldn't speak about the law because I really don't know about the law. I studied the law 30 years ago and I know nothing about it now apart from, what I do. Yeah. But what should I talk about now?
So I get the fact, there was this case,
yes.
and that's why they were considering repealing 377 in the first place.
377, yeah, but it's part, yes, that's one of the reasons. I believe that's what it was, but it was part of a whole legal reform. They were reforming the Penal Code, which is actually a wonderful thing. There's so many laws that should have been repealed ages ago. They were making lots of changes. And that the only reason why this 377A came up for, I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, is because they repealed 377. Then it became very apparent that it was a case of discrimination because 377A meant that, heterosexuals can do it, but homosexuals can't do it. So that was what, for many of us, it was about that. It was not just about gay rights, it is about gay rights, I guess.
It's not about sex.
Yeah.
It wasn't about sex.
So you had that meeting. Could you remember where that meeting was? Who organized it?
Which meeting?
You said there was a forum with lots of civil society activists.
Yeah, that forum was who organized it? I can't really remember. I think that. Sorry. You were there. You were there. Yes. No,
okay, Julian. What are your memories? Let's try and reconstruct this.
I just remember it's at a substation.
It was at substation.
That's
I think
right.
It was LXR with people like us.
Yeah.
I remember.
Was it?
Where's CEO right now, what's it, my classmate, Karina, you were there, I remember. Who called it?
It was, I think, between Bramer and Alex.
Yeah.
I think it was between Bramer and Alex, and there were a few other people there, a few other groups.
I feel like a lot of people won't remember Brema. Brema Murthy, she was at one point the head of Aware, wasn't she? And she was I think she was one of our first nominated MPs.
Yes.
Yeah, back then the whole nominated MP scheme was pretty new, and it was like being introduced as this way to get opposition voices into Parliament without actually having the opposition in Parliament. And so it was real, so people were very distrustful of it. It was after the 2006 elections. We also just gotten, I think, Loh Tia Kiang was in Parliament already, right? Workers' Party had just elected, had just brought in Sylvia Lim. So now it seemed like the opposition was having a new resurgence, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that was the whole environment in which we were having this reform.
Yeah. I remember actually that while I was trying to look for a sponsor to put forward our petition in Parliament, we of course went through all the profiling, and our student co and I did that.
Oh, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So so there was a meeting at the substation, and this was probably 2006, right? Not 2007?
No, end of 2006, that's when the Ministry of Home Affairs had the consultative document paper and asked for feedback.
Okay, and in 2007 you had a meeting at the substation with Brema Murthy.
2006.
Oh, 2006, so you had Brema Murthy and Alex Au of Yawning Bread and one of the founders, one of the key people behind People Like Us. Yeah, like organizing this meeting, and that was where you decided to take action.
Well, kind of, yes, more or less immediately after FCC, the Free Community Church decided that we should do a paper.
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I think a lot of people forget is that in the early days, even in the 2000s, a lot of the key LGBT activists were Christians. From the church. Yeah, because I remember, I think it was Myang Siu over there who was explaining to me it was Clarence Singham who was explaining to me that one reason why so many gay activists were Christians because they had all tried to go through ex-gay counseling, and then they had all met each other and said, hey, let's meet up for drinks later and discuss this. You know what? I think you're okay. I think you're okay. Let's start some activist group. So we did have
I'm not able to comment on that because I was not in Singapore. I came home in 2005.
But the church, like a free community church, that was one reason why gay people could gather in a non-sexual, non-alcoholic setting.
So in a more sort of healthy setting.
Yeah, but I mean it's strange. But the church was very instrumental in helping gay activism in Singapore get organized. Both the gay church and the straight church.
I just like to point out that one of the things that when I look at it, is the importance of personal empowerment, the acceptance of who you are, realizing it before you can go forth and do other things. Being the change yourself is very important. I mean, that's what Sulin actually, I always call her Vinila.
Be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes, and she quoted that in the first IndigNation that when she was there, and I was very
Pink Dot.
Yes, that's right.
Who says that we be the change we want to see in the world originally? Gandhi. Yes. Okay. All right. So we had this meeting, and what was the next step after that?
So the next step.
Was that Joshua?
Yeah, Joshua came along, and it was all right. We wrote the cannot hide, you must come out already. Yeah. Joshua is married with a wife and 2 kids. I'm so sweetie here. I'm not going to move. And this one also. She is Botak.
And the kids?
No, I don't. I have one big kid, he's there.
Yeah, but I thought it was, when George initially approached me about this, he was saying like there were 3 big people involved in the campaign. It was George, Joo Him, and Stuart Koh. And Stuart's going through a lot of messy legal stuff right now. Yeah, unfortunately. But he said like you were very instrumental in the early days of the campaign, and so a lot of people don't know about your role. Could you talk about that? What your role was?
Can I tell the truth?
Yes. You heard it here first, folks.
It's gonna sound like primary school kids, you know, like,
Okay.
yeah. He made me do it.
Can I tell the truth? Okay. Okay, I'd like to tell the truth. Now, we decided to write the paper to the Ministry of Home Affairs, and then we sat down and looked at each other and said, what should we be doing? And at that time, though I was involved with human rights work in Amnesty International in Hong Kong and in England, I was never a real sort of, so don't know anything. So then he and Douglas looked at me so seriously and intently that I thought I'd better do a serious and good piece of work. And that resulted in a paper that we submitted.
Who was Douglas?
Douglas Lim is not here, that's the 3 of us who wrote the paper. That resulted in a paper which Aware endorsed, and we endorsed Aware's paper on marital rape. And the 377A paper was then, am I jumping ahead of time?
A bit. I think marital rape is another issue that we need to talk about. And Joo Him, I think you're the best person to talk about the Penal Code reform and marital rape, because it was something that really disturbed me at the time. And of course, a lot of gay men don't care about it, but like we should make them care about it. Could you talk about that?
Okay.
Yes.
So I think at that meeting we met and we said,
Actually, sicker than the news.
I know it's like, okay, so at that meeting at Substation, the different groups got together and we said we would do something about it. Then I think each group kind of branched off and said, okay, we'll write our own paper. And at some point we said we would endorse the FCC position paper on the part on 377A, and they would endorse ours on marital rape. And at that point where they were amending the Penal Code, there was no such thing as marital rape. As in, as a husband you can do anything to your wife and it's not illegal. The amendment at that point was to add in 3 exceptions. One is if you have a personal protection order against your husband. The second is if you are legally separated, and I cannot remember that, sorry. But along those lines, if you are legally separated or if you are in the process of getting a divorce. Right, Karina, anything to add? I think Karina was also quite instrumental in drafting the position paper. So Karina and I were both on Aware Exco at that time, and there was a few other people like Hun Ing who was involved. And Hun Ing got her son to help us do some research on this whole package, and Aware, with the help of a subcommittee, we put together a whole position paper. And at that point, I remember that actually a lot of the lawyers, even like the Law Society, they actually thought that the Repeal 377A was a stronger case than marital rape, because they were repealing 377. That made it almost unconstitutional. They made it, in a way, unconstitutional to keep 377 because it was discrimination. Whereas for marital rape, it was, in a way, a harder sell. So the climate at that time was that the better legal arguments to repeal 377A. So
Actually, there's one thing I need to say is I'm really glad, to have this very enlightened women at Aware who were willing to do the cross endorsement. Because I went around asking all the NGOs who were there on that night. Nobody wanted to endorse the repeal of 377A because it was much too controversial. And I really cannot understand that, given the fact that it's Singapore and the nation is born on equal rights. So anyway, this is just for laughs. Someone asked me once, and her conclusion was, so only the women and gays had balls. Sorry.
Yeah, wow. So, Okay, I feel like one of the things about the marital rape issue and how it's linked to 3778, wait, was the marital rape issue 389? Does anyone remember? Okay. One of the moments where I remember being very struck by the linkage between the two was the Workers' Party, which was like now, yay, it's our new opposition party. They organized a talk discussing the Penal Code, and I was like, I thought like, let's hear it. And instead of speaking up in defense of of women and gay men, they completely chose not to talk about 377A, and they actually had a man saying, oh, but we really want to believe these women when they say that they've been raped by a man, even when they've got a protection order against him. And I was just aghast that even a simple matter like, don't rape your wife could be controversial amongst Workers' Party MPs. I mean, let alone 377A. Yeah. Not with MPs, they weren't MPs, he wasn't elected.
I think there's a difference between the human rights activist and the politician. And basically we did lobby Sylvia at that time. She was my classmate in London when we were both reading our masters, so she was the obvious person to lobby rather than Siew Hwang. And she personally was pro-repeal, but being the politician, she had to toe the party line, and they were very worried about their votes. So there you go.
So the position paper, actually, we're still talking about, called the joint papers and the papers that you wrote.
Yeah.
What was the procedure for submitting them?
Procedure very simple. You just submit it when the deadline is there. You just submit it, and it goes to the Ministry of Home Affairs. And that's it. Maybe Julian would like to talk a little bit about this. This is normally how the government passed their laws, their bills.
Yeah, I mean, nothing much to add. There was an official email address, and you just sent it in, and that was it. We were joking that they probably have a room for like the X-Files, like you go in and never ever seen again. But we try.
Oh yeah, we did a cover letter. That's our cover letter. That's the cover letter of the FCC. I managed to dig it out, and that's basically and some of the points. I don't know when Yi-Sheng wants to talk about it. The points about that.
Okay, shall I just read them out? Because I thought I printed it out, but I didn't, okay? So cover letter, 8 December 2016. Oh no, 8 December 2006 lah. Okay. Briefly, we advocate the following. 1. Total repeal of 377A and decriminalization of consensual sex between adults regardless of their sexual orientation or preference. And 2. Total abolition of the marital immunity currently awarded to a man who engages in non-consensual sex with his wife. Whilst heartened by the respect which the government is showing towards human rights in many of the amendments, the introduction of laws to protect the young and the weak, and the restraint in increasing imprisonment and caning for penalty, we are concerned by the government's discrimination against homosexual men, showing a lack of respect for their constitutional and human rights. Okay. By decriminalizing anal and oral sex between heterosexuals, even for individuals as young as 16 years of age, while retaining the provision on acts of sexual intimacy between men, even when the acts are consensual and between adults, a significant portion of Singaporeans are being treated unequally. The privacy of heterosexuals and lesbians is respected, but not that of gay men. They are deprived of their fundamental rights to freely express their love for someone of their choice. The right to stand equal before the law and freedom of expression are an inherent dignity and inalienable right of humankind. Should we continue? It's like quite long.
Yeah, it's very long. I don't think we should continue.
Hey, why do you go and hunt down the lesbians?
I didn't hunt down the lesbians. It's just that maybe this is the Victorian era thing that we adopted, because the same thing in England, sex between men was illegal for a long time, and then not between women. Yeah, so it is purely discriminatory. It makes it more discriminatory, isn't it? Don't you think so?
It's partly because women are not valued. Women don't have a place in society. I mean, that's basically it. I think so.
Oh, so they can have sex also, man of value.
Agency, right? Women have no agency.
No, I thought it was because Queen Victoria didn't fathom that two women could have sex with each other. That's why.
That's a myth.
Okay, basically, actually, we talk about the inequality all the time, which is very correct, but very basic, half the time, is the idea that we think that 377A shouldn't exist because, especially if they're used against consenting adults in privacy, so there's a breach of your privacy. That is not exactly written in the Constitution. Finally, the freedom of expression. And that was partly, we didn't really put it that much, but part of the thing, because it's a church, I felt the angle should be personal development and all. And so there was a little bit more emphasis on that, which we didn't use that when we did the repeal campaign later on, because that was more a national thing. I really honestly believe that the freedom of expression, having sex with someone you love, it's one of the supreme way of expressing yourself and your personal affection. And that should be considered, especially these days with same-sex marriages and all, and should we ever do an appeal, a judicial review of the law again in 20 years' time, I think we should take that up. Yeah.
I feel like we sort of glossed over exactly what. So Joshua and Douglas were co-drafting this letter with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they were all lawyers and in Free Community
Actually,
Church.
Douglas wasn't a lawyer already. He was doing, but yeah, we're all legally trained.
Oh, okay.
So none of us were human rights or constitutional lawyers. So we had to study it within like 2 weeks and try to make it look decent, which was quite difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the odd one outs in the FCC council. I mean, being a straight guy, maybe a little bit of history. I mean, I married a foreigner, so after I got married, she came to Singapore and she got fed up with things, the way things happen in my family. So one day we decided, to somehow visit a church, and it turned out that when I walked in, there was a bunch of very nice and friendly people.
You picked Free Community Church without knowing that it would be queer.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, okay.
And it was.
It's not a church where you can walk down. It's not like the cathedral is by the roadside. You just walk past. What were you doing in Pearl Center? I remember there lots of massage parlors there.
Yangtze, to be exact.
Oh, okay. Oh, the one known for its porn films.
Yeah. Anyway, it all brings back memories. I remember I walked into this dingy-looking place. Somehow there was this elderly pastor who was giving a sermon, and it's none other than Reverend Yap. Yeah.
Yap Kim Hao.
Yes, Reverend Yap Kim Hao. Yeah. And the topic for the day for that day was the Sermon on the Mount. Yeah, so it seemed fair enough. I mean, it didn't look so queer after all. Yeah. And then there was this guy who came and patted me on my back, thinking like, this guy with like a spouse and 2 little kids. What are you doing here? Are you from Focus on the Family or something? Yeah. Spying on that, yeah. So he was Clarence Singham. Yeah. So that was how I got involved with things in the community, and somehow I got involved in council work, and that was how I got dragged into this whole thing. Yeah.
That's true. That's because we were in the same Bible study group together, I think. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
I
because there was Susan and there was Clarence. We were all in the council, so we were all like eager to fight for this thing. Yeah.
That's right. Susan Tang. Yeah, she was very, very supportive. That's Any questions?
Okay, so after the letter vanished, after the letter vanished into the Indiana Jones room of the Singapore government,
Yeah.
what was the next step in the campaign?
Well, knowing the Singaporean government and how the legislative process is, they will generally, I was hoping that they will have a select committee, but they will generally just put the bill through. The consultative documents just go through it, they read through it, and then they will come out with whatever they want, and then, put it to Parliament, and it remained the same. 377, 377A, and 377B. It wasn't in this second reading yet, but we kind of knew. So Stuart and I think around Chinese New Year, had a meeting. He came to my house because I had the flu, and we decided, and so we then started going around profiling people in Parliament, because I recognized, I went through...
Oh, hold on, I think there are some people in the room who might not know who Stuart Coe is. Does anyone here not know who Stuart Coe is? Okay, yeah, alright. Yeah, alright, so, yeah, why don't you talk a bit about Stuart?
Okay, when the paper came out and it traveled to San Francisco to his brother, who sent the paper to Stuart, and then we had a town hall meeting at Friday, which is a gay media website, very popular in those days. We had a town hall meeting. Some of the people in the audience were there, Ellen, for example, and so they decided to adopt that paper because they had no time. We didn't have time to write another one. So everybody, I don't know what happened when they say they adopted, because I didn't see it being signed or anything. But the conversation continued, and we, knowing what was going to happen, and I kind of identified, looking through the parliamentary papers, the process of, and saw the proceedings where you could actually have a petition to Parliament if someone in Parliament is willing to sponsor and read it for you. And so therefore this little loophole was able to let us get into Parliament, because I was very concerned with the fact that at that time there was supposed to be a media blackout on this issue, and the media never reported on it. I wasn't going to let them go away like this scot-free. So when I saw that, I said, all right, let's discuss it in Parliament and see whether the media can have a blackout. And that was it.
Now I'm remembering something else, because that was the same year. I mean, I should say is a bit about Stuart Coe, because it's easy to, now that Friday isn't so popular anymore, it's easy to forget how important of a force it was, because Stuart had been, it started as, a website for dating and personals, and but it was across the whole of Asia, not just Singapore. And so, and then it started having a news component in both English and Chinese. And he started sponsoring gay films, and he was having, he was organizing circuit parties, and when that nation circuit party got banned, we started IndigNation, which is, and he was sponsoring us, so he really was an incredible force.
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, but yes, but also IndigNation began in 2005, and in 2007, partly because there was all this pressure for a media blackout, we got so many events that got banned that year. I remember the last event of that was Contradiction, the literary event, and I counted down the 10 events or items that had been banned, like my short story, Lilota, the Pink Run, Pink Picnic. Everything kind of banned that year.
Oh, I didn't know.
Lots of things.
I know that there were problems with picnics in the park and so on. Yes.
Yeah, but it was really invigorating, feeling like we mattered when they banned us. I was just a 26-year-old, so it was like, yay, I'm really making a difference. But then actually, no. Okay, just yeah. But okay, so you started with. So this is how you started deciding you would start get an MP. You looked for
This was the only way. So Stuart and I had a meeting. I told him the procedure and this is what you should do and how it could be done. So Friday had the resources, so we started identifying people. Naturally, Sylvia came out because she was my friend and she's there, okay? But Siu Kam Hong was profiled and it was there. So when Sylvia sort of rejected the idea, because Workers' Party wouldn't do it, Siu Kam Hong was our only surviving hope.
Siu Kam, people, not everyone will remember who Siu Kam Hong is. And can you go a picture of him? Because he's got a very unique face. We've actually, there's an inter alia legal, there's conversations on activism thing happening at Epify later as in IndigNation, and he's going to be the guest speaker for that thing. So he's traveling now, otherwise he'd be on the panel now.
So anyway, Siu Kam Hong, can you?
Yeah,
Well, this is a little side story. So of course, naturally, some of us Friday, some of like Sylvia, the other Sylvia who used to write for Friday, and myself, of course, generally will be appearing at events where Siu Kam Hong will like me to be there to appear, and started saying hi. I was very friendly. So that eventually when we decided, when we could approach him on the project, he would be quite evidently say yes, because you need to have this rapport when you do that. So he didn't know all about that. In fact, only after the whole repeal and all these things, and an article was written on how we sort of approached him and profiled him, he said, oh my God, I'm really getting very scared now. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I remember he told me he was actually single at the time.
Yes.
So when people heard like he was going to speak up for 3778, they were like, hey, is he or isn't he?
No, it's not. He had a girlfriend. I mean, it definitely wasn't. I mean, look, I can be a feminist without being a woman.
I don't like,
So,
you're the only gay man up here rather than me right now.
You're down there, so yeah.
All of you guys spoke, stood up for 377.
That's right. Please. Why did you stand up for 3778? Stand up for Singapore.
For repealing 3778.
That's right.
Well, I mean, the honest and goodness truth is I have a lot of gay friends and relations. And this really makes them a criminal. I mean, the first time I ever came across this law was when I was in law school. And it wasn't a criminal case, it was a defamation case. It was taught. And it was a case of Oscar Wilde. So he sued the Marquis of Queensberry for defamation. And the lesson was actually that the defense to defamation is justification. That was the lesson. But because I was actually, I really wanted to do the arts and not the law, and I couldn't decide, but I did the law because I got in. I spent my time, before the days of internet, I spent like hours and hours in the library at the university reading about this case, and it was just amazing to me. It was like a play because he was so witty. He thought that he would get away with it, right? Eventually, he lost the case, which then meant that the criminal courts was obliged to take him, to charge him with an offense because the Marquis of Queensberry proved that it wasn't defamation. He was a sodomite. I mean, he didn't get the word right. He didn't say sodomite. You are a supposing sodomite. And this is like the 1800s, is it? I don't know. It's like so long ago, right? And in the UK, this law was repealed a long time ago, I think in the 60s.
It was 66 or 67, just after we got independent, so thanks.
Yeah, right. I mean, and because I was such an Oscar Wilde fan, I always thought like, this is so wrong, And then like now, they've made Alan Turing a hero. I don't know if you all know Alan Turing, there's a film about him. And they've apologized to him for all
the computer scientist.
Yeah, right, the famous computer scientist. There's a famous movie about him. And then here we while we are still, we think, I think that, I mean, that was a big thing for us. It was, this is an old law, an English law. There's nothing Asian about it. Like a lot of people talk about it, that there are no laws against gay sex in Asia.
It's all native ones.
Yeah, I mean, they're not. It's not. It's all like it all comes from the West, really.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, for us, and then at that point in time, it was suddenly like, oh, this is a clear case. We really thought we were going to win it. We really thought it was going to be repealed because it's not just a gay issue. It is a human rights issue. It's a discrimination issue, and we'd be able to get around that. And since I knew that I was going to talk about this, I went to watch all the YouTube videos from the period that you sent me, and then I decided, look, I don't just listen to the ones that are pro. I mean, all the people who spoke for who on our side. There were very few. There was Charles Chong, there was DYMK, there was
Hri Kumar.
Then I thought, okay, I think more important to go and listen to the people who are against it, because how do we move forward? Because why have we dropped it? Should we continue doing it? And it just seems to me that at the end of the day, most of the people who spoke, and Prime Minister said we're going to keep it after all. After that, it's like pointless to say it really, right?
Yeah.
But the people who decided to keep it is because actually it wasn't an issue. It really wasn't an issue because the decision in Parliament, they were talking about passing the bill of the reform in general. But because of all the work that was done by the activists, 377A suddenly became a kind of big story. There's one more part of the law that irks me, and it's the fact that it's something that you do in private, as opposed to in public. So that's where a lot of laws I feel here are restrictive. That things that you do in private, your body is not even your own anymore. You go somewhere where you can do something illegal, you come back, they can still catch you for doing it. So it's that part is just another thing of freedom part. So and I think being an activist is really not easy, because you see people kind of stop and lose their gas. People like Alex Howe, and it's not easy to keep going. So it's important that we keep having young blood that keeps coming again and saying, I'm going to fight this battle. So I'm really glad that this is happening, and that sorry,
I'm sorry. The image of young blood coming again makes me scared. I mean, that's why they have these laws now, because there's perverts like me. Okay, that's on video. That's a joke. Yeah, that's a joke. Okay, actually, I mean, we have to talk about what happened in Parliament. But before that, you guys made the video before that, didn't you? There was, when we talk about a campaign, there actually was a whole media campaign as well. And George, should we play the video first, or do you want to introduce that media campaign?
The video will be the media campaign, isn't it?
Okay.
I think if anyone wants to, it should be interviewing. I know nothing about. Okay, one of the things about this.
Just forward.
Can I just? You want to play the video first?
Okay, let's play the video. Yeah. Come closer if you want to see it properly. Yes. I know. Yeah, but it's just so. I mean, remember, YouTube was born in 2005, and by 2007 we were. Singaporeans were already using it for political activism, and so it's like, we were on trend.
They cannot just.
I think back then you couldn't put on a YouTube video that was longer than 10 minutes. Even,
Okay, we had a few first. Alan Xia, who's here, is the genius behind this. It's ready now, so I'm going to the introduction.
Sorry.
All right, Alan, why don't you want to introduce it?
Yeah.
We said, well, we need a video. And we were very busy with other things that were running parallel to the video. So I just sort of turned to Pam Wee, and I said, Pam, you and Edgar Tang, who is a very talented video editor who worked at MediaCorp at the time, I said, can you all do this? And we just wanted to do something catchy. And so we came up with this idea, and we of course went to all our wonderful theatre friends, and some MediaCorp friends, and we produced this video very, very quickly and put it on air. On air meaning YouTube.
No. Okay, you know, the weird thing is that, now I think about it, it wasn't just, although there was this video, there were a number of art things that came out of this. There was, Lavia Alfian Saad wrote this play called Asian Boys, Volume 3, Happy Endings. And that was, half of that was about the pioneering gay novel, Peculiar Chris, and the other half was updating it up to 2007 and having the Repeal 377A campaign as part of the story. And then the guy who wrote Peculiar Chris, Johan S. Lee, who was based in London, he was so inspired by this, but he wrote an entire novel about these fictional characters, including a fictional gym buff, drugged out Stuart Coe, who was, yeah.
Repeal it. Repeal it. Repeal it.
3778. 3778.
This is the sort of the prototype for all the Pink Dots YouTube videos that came later. This is the first. Like
This is an accident. You were wearing
let's gather together all these celebrities and have them stand behind a queer cause. So it really, so as cheesy as that was. It's like it's a fine, like, you know, buffalo cheesy, okay? Yeah, it was the beginning of many things. Yeah, and but I was saying, like, the crazy thing is that the guy who wrote, oh yeah, you can see Glenn Gui was wearing a red t-shirt there saying Asian Boys, and that was because he was doing that Asian Boys Volume 3 play. And then Johannes Lee ended up writing a novel called Quiet Time, about in which you were seeing the whole struggle against the repeal campaign happening in a family. It's actually quite a good novel. Quiet Time. You should read it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can.
It's not relevant.
All right. So this video happened before the Parliament issue, right? One thing that people don't remember is that I remember there was supposed to be an enshrined 377A march that happened.
An opposition pro-retention group, and they came up with a mirror site, but saying that you should retain it and all these things. And it was at certain points some of the things got a bit certain messages got a bit too much, which we didn't sort of think it should be, because we tried to make sure that it was a clean fight based on principles.
There was a march that was supposed to take place from St. Andrew's Cathedral, and we went there on the day, and it just didn't happen.
For repeal or for?
No, for the...
to keep...
Yeah, to keep 377. Yeah.
They probably...
And I think the police had a word with them.
Well, you know it's illegal assembly.
I know, but it was just kind of...
I wish they had done it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it's one of, because it sort of vanished from people's memory, the fact that there was this thing that was supposed to happen and it wasn't.
Well, on the day of the, well, some of the things I can't remember. There were so many things happening, and one of the things about within the campaign itself, when I only knew about the YouTube thing going to happen at the very last minute. LNCR's got this thing. I said, oh, brilliant, wonderful. I didn't even know anything was they were doing this, and okay, fine. Then. So many people were doing it, and we had an implicit trust in each other, just doing the right thing because we had the same values and the same and just doing it because we also believe in the professionalism that each had. That was the success of the whole thing. That's what I could say. But what you would say?
Yeah, I mean about the video.
The video was done really in a hurry. I mean, we knew we had a deadline. We knew we had to get it done quick. Yeah, so I remember. I think it was going to go away very soon.
It was all done at Selena's house.
Yeah, it was all done in Selena Tan's house. She's in the video as well, with the cement wall in the background. And yeah. We were told to wear pink though.
And so that was a few days before the parliamentary debates, right?
No, the video came out quite early. We had to put it out early for the momentum. The video actually gained the public's attention and all. That's how it generated. So a good campaign, you need so many things. Yes, Alan?
If I may.
Yeah, of course.
The video was part of a parallel campaign, which was the open letter to the Prime Minister and the petition that we needed the public to sign. So, there were two, obviously there's a parliamentary petition, and then there was the public petition and letter.
Yeah, with the parliamentary petition, I mean, you've talked a bit about how you managed to seduce Hwang. But so should we go down to the actual day in Parliament itself? Or the night before, you said interesting things about the night before.
The night before was very interesting because Hwang had to make a speech in Parliament. So I sent him Martin Luther King's speech on the marble hall. I have a dream, and the style of writing speeches like this. And then we also had to find quotes for him, and Pam, we worked overnight to do that. The quotes, all the quotes that he had about people driving down from JB to put in the petition. The petition to Parliament was especially heartening because originally I thought, I had a conversation with Hwang with first, like, how many do you expect? He said 100. I said, okay, we'll get into 100. It became 2,000 over. And again, of course, we had brilliant public relations and marketing people who got boxes in shops and all these things. And then here is the one who went to do such things. Yeah, so the availability, so people downloaded it and signed it and sent it and deposited it. But you have people, and the people who were pro-repeal were not young people, and they have people from all age and races, and especially a lot of them were older people who went through the war and sort of knew discrimination and all these things. Yes, and those were the quotes. Pam, we worked overnight. I was really, to give her all the quotes the next, come home all the quotes the next day in Parliament. So if you do watch what he said, his speech, you could pick up some of this, and that's basically it.
Should we see some of that his video,
Yes,
or do you
do.
think it's pretty? It's
It's going to be very long though, but I don't know how you can. Yeah.
Repeal of 3778 is not a gay issue. It is not about gay rights. It is not just for gays or friends or relatives of gays. No. It is about fairness, justice and non-discrimination. It is about tolerance, understanding and inclusiveness. It is about upholding the fundamental protections afforded by the Constitution, the basic pillars underpinning our country. These are issues for all Singaporeans. The response to the petition brought this up. The signatories were a broad and diverse group, showing that the issues cut across all lines and resonated universally with people. Straight and gay, male and female, young, middle-aged and old, civil servants, professionals and students, religious and non-religious, they all signed the petition. They all understood the guiding light of treating others as you want them to treat you. They were united by the common belief that 3778 is unfair, unjust and wrong, and hence should be repealed. Not proactively enforcing 3778 does not mean that its retention is without cause. The government says that it seeks to reflect the moral values of the majority. But what about the human cost to gay persons and their families? What about the cost to Singapore from those who leave Singapore because of this law? What price this reflection and endorsement of public morality? The majority of Singaporeans seem to speak as if the non-enforcement of 3778 means that everything is fine. But the majority would say that because they are not the subjects of discrimination, because they are not the minority who have to live under the threat of 3778, which is a sword of Damocles that could fall with a change of policy by the government of the day. Now is the time for this House, which represents all Singaporeans, to lead by example. Now is the time to uphold the noble ideals of our founding fathers, ideals upon which our country was founded and which hold our society together. The ideals of a democratic society based on justice and equality, the ideal of all persons being equal before the law and all persons having the equal protection of the law. Now is the time to do the right thing and repeal 377.
The real issue is not if, but should we ever repeal 3778. It is not inevitable, it is not desirable to repeal it in any event. Not only is retaining 3778 sound public policy, it is legally and constitutionally beyond reproach. Responsible legislators must grapple with the facts, figures and principles involved. They cannot discount the noxious social consequences of repeal. Now, debate must be based on substance and not sound bites. Let me red flag four red herrings. First, to say a law is
I
archaic.
think she's bumming us out.
Yeah.
Do we want to fast forward?
No, I think we don't need. No, you want to. Okay. For those who don't recognize this lovely woman,
Please go home and listen to it. It's got no intellectual basis.
Substance.
Yeah.
it's weird because she actually is a very established constitutional lawyer, though.
Which is very sad.
I mean, actually, she did a lot of. I think it's important to note that she did a lot of important work against sex trafficking, and she is a respected legal scholar. She's the She's nominated MP Teo Lee An, and she's become kind of, and yeah, like she has a reputation in the gay
She's a
community.
bigot.
Yes.
Oh, you cannot call her a homophobe. That's against freedom of expression. Yeah, that's what she said. Okay, I mean, go home and watch this because it's very long, and for those of you, so we don't think it should be there.
It's already like 4:20 or so. I know we're going to run over a bit, but I think before we, there's a little more we can say about like how all of this ended, but perhaps we should open the floor to questions. Huh? Yeah. So, are there any questions that people want to ask, having seen how this campaign played out from its beginnings? Oh, okay. From the back of the room, yes. One moment.
I guess the question is, what's next? Does anyone have any? I'm not sure whether people who were actively involved. Do you guys have any idea? Like, is that it? Full stop? Or is it a case of let's wait 20 years? What's next?
Okay, we haven't really talked about this ended, so I suppose that's how we. But Nia, do you want to? So I think that that
Should I
will be
say
answered.
something first?
All right.
Actually, this campaign, when we first started, even at the town hall meeting, I mean, it was just for this, and that's all. We were just going to do something against the retention of 377A. It was never anything that was going to go down and had more. So, but very strangely, those were the days when we didn't have the word fake news. So we used the word misinformation. That the pro-retention started saying that we want gay marriage and all these things. That it started drafting an agenda, which we didn't have. They decided to draft an agenda for us when the whole idea was just to do this and go shop.
I think you've also said from the very beginning you knew that this campaign wouldn't succeed because of how the government drafts its laws.
Sorry, it all depends on your definition of succeed. The campaign was never going to be one where 377A would be repealed. Because the composition of the parliament, we had a one-party system, and there is such a thing as the party whip. So and this is a ministry, and there's a PAP, I think Ho Ping Kee, my ex-lecturer, was the one who put forward this. More importantly, so it was never going to be repealed and struck out. The votes will be overwhelmingly pro. In fact, what was in Parliament was they lifted the whip for the discussion, so there was an open discussion, but not for the voting. So it was already supposed to be,
There's no vote?
There was no votes. You don't need the votes. Yeah. So it was not a court case where you win or lose. You will never win because of the composition. In order to get it repealed, we need to have a majority that will do something.
But the artists, you guys...
Argument by the Law Society was that if you retained it without enforcing it, you make a mockery of the law. That's basically the code.
Yeah. I thought that's their policy now in general.
That's why they're not.
As a response to a question back there, tomorrow at 5 to 6:30, right? I think Eugene is Becca is going to be talking about what's after 377A. I think that's a discussion that you want to stay, and especially those people who are young, who want to get involved, who want to make change happen. We are no longer the age in those days in 2006 where we come together and you look up to one bunch of people leading the way, but now we are crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, and you can be part of the change all the way down to each single person. You know, I mean, social media has changed how we play the game. One thing I think that we didn't talk much about, I think Alan did mention the website. The website was a very special thing because when people signed at the website, they actually could type comments. And it was the comments that George was referring to that Pam was going through to plow through those comments to tell stories of real life people and what they struggled through with 377A on top of their heads. And I think that was the power. I think the website was very amazing. And there are some things that was lost along the way. I remember originally they did not want to have the petition heard. The Speaker of the House actually said something that it will be discussed, and then they will come out and talk about it. So there will be no speeches made. Then at 5 o'clock, we heard from Hwang that said they changed their mind. The Speaker of the House.
They changed their mind twice. They actually called us 3 times.
I think these details need to tell
people. We were really having fun. As a lawyer, you were like, oh, the Speaker of the House called us again. They changed their mind. The whole Aegis Chambers. Okay, that was it. But I think the campaign was very momentous for 2 things. It was the first mass petition to Parliament in Singapore since independence. Okay, never before was it done by people in general. 2, it was the first time new media was used. 2006, 2007, I think Facebook wasn't that popular. Facebook wasn't even around at that time. Exactly. It wasn't popular. Yeah. So those were the two important things to note. So it is, in that sense, a turn in the civil rights movement in Singapore, because everybody now use Facebook to do a lot of things, and social media is now all being used. YouTube is being used. I think we probably are the first. I haven't done the real research on it, but gauging from looking at it, UN has started using YouTube videos for some of its campaigns as well. But I think LNCI is probably one of the first to come up with this idea for the video. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, do we have any further questions? Or perhaps people who want to share their memories of the campaign? Was that a hand?
Yes, it was. And your question kept on going. So, I don't want to share a memory of the campaign. This is an observation, and I am not trying to change what you Singaporeans wish to do in your country. Even with this wretched ex-colonial law and evil British people. I have heard it said quite often from people more senior and better paid than me that Singapore is not ready for change yet. And we can look at changing the law when people are ready for it. What is often quoted is, I think it's an ISC, Institute of Southeast Asian Studies survey from 3, 4, 5 years ago. And that, the result of the survey was that Singaporeans have no positive role models about gay people and are not ready for it yet. And that really infuriates me, because the people they're interviewing, the Heartlanders, have been deprived of any positive role models by a very efficient media law. So what the survey shows is that the media law works extremely well. If you never show anybody a neutral or a positive role model of a LGBT person, then they'll never have one.
That was what my first thing was, yeah. If you have censorship laws that put into place where you cannot have, but you cannot have a positive role models, anything that's promoting, glamorizing homosexual lifestyle, and for them, a gay couple or lesbian couple living together, having a normal life and having children is a homosexual lifestyle. Sorry, I think that's very heterosexual.
Any further questions or comments? Back there. Yeah. Yeah, Yogesh, was that you?
So, you stated earlier that, like, basically how the repeal campaign started was because there was a review of the Penal Code, and so there was an opportunity. What were the sentiments towards repealing 3778 before that? Was there like a desire to push it before the Penal Code came into question? Was there like already like, oh, 3778 is something we need to push back against? Was there that sentiment before that?
Okay, let me, it's very difficult to answer that because I was half the time away from Singapore until 2005. So I can't say that, but I know people were prosecuted under 377A before. Yes. I don't know about the sentiment, but okay, this is something I think I just remembered I want to say. Now, there's such a thing called the right to be forgotten. And what is good that came out of this is in 2007, the Criminal Registration Act was amended, and they took 377A out of where if you are actually incarcerated in prison for it. There's no way, if once found guilty, you have to be in prison. There's no fine. If you're in prison for it, it's not an offense that's within the records. You don't need to be registered, and that was a good thing about it. So, but I do not know whether those people who were incarcerated before 2007 under this are still in the register. If you know anyone, maybe they can find out and write to the Commissioner for Police with regards to that.
Any further questions about this? Yes.
Hi, George. Is there any reason why, to the question about what's next, that a repeal can a repeal be put up every few years if a willing MP can be found so that this issue can be kept alive from a legal perspective?
This is well. There's two ways to make law. One is in the courts. The other one is the Parliament. And is there any way? It's actually a legal political process. So you have to look at the Parliament and whether anybody will sponsor a bill and whether there's enough people in the Parliament to vote pro repeal.
So if there is someone willing to sponsor legally, Parliament has to. The same mechanism can be again ad infinitum.
That's right. You could do it over and over again. Somebody wanted to do it once to have more holidays for maids. Yeah.
What about constitutional challenges? Is there a time limit before you conducted your previous constitutional challenge?
Oh, no.
So you can do it every year if you want a constitutional challenge.
You could go to the court anytime you want, but it would be very silly if the highest court of the land has said something and it's the same judges sitting there, they are likely to vote the same. I mean, so it's not a, I mean, you need to look at how it's being done in America, and you look at the composition of the judges and who's sitting up there. It's done all the time. One of the things that it wasn't done immediately to go to court after the repeal in Parliament was that we had to look at the composition of the court then. Kenneth's challenge, judicial review, was done for certain reasons. Yeah, but that's another story.
Yeah, okay. It's nearly, I think it is past 4:30. So, are there any last questions from the group before we wrap up? Okay. If not, I think I'd like to close with one last question. So, what do you feel? What do you feel like the impact of this campaign was? I mean, not just on your, I suppose, both for the causes you've been involved in, and also maybe personally.
Well, okay, it's a bit easier for me to share this personally because apart from the campaign, the position paper on marital rape, for me this was a very personal campaign, the 3778, as George and Ellen had mentioned, because my brother's gay. And the 4 women, I'm one of the founding members of SAFE, was started by 4 women, friends and family of LGBTQ people. But when the petitioners were originally George and Stuart, and then they decided that it would be good to have a straight ally, and it would be good to have a female straight ally, and they approached SAFE. And that's when they realized that amongst the 4 women in SAFE, I was the only Singaporean. So it was either me or nobody. And I spent one sleepless night freaking out. I'd never been so afraid in my life. And then the next morning I called George and I said yes. And for me personally, that was the last time I ever felt that afraid.
Wow.
You know, it was kind of like, it's the fear of fear itself. And when I crossed that line, everything else seemed a lot easier. So for me personally, in a way, it was, I guess I have to thank George to come up with the idea, because we need a female straight ally. And to ask SAFE and to have 3 Malaysians and 1 Singaporean.
Okay, one thing I want to share. Both of us were so afraid that right up to the press conference, even at the press conference, did you tell your parents? Yeah? We were there on national television going against the government before and left. No, I didn't dare.
Yeah, our parents can find out on national TV.
That's right! That's what they did!
I have to say,
Yeah, I mean, because you were already amongst, you were already like knee deep in gay men.
That's not very good. I have little fear. I have little to fear. I mean, like, the question about how do we move forward and can we get another MP to speak up? At the time, I remember very clearly when we were talking about it, Hwang had a clear sense that this was going to be political suicide. That's why Sylvia has said no, and she has never ever, So until there's somebody who is fearless, that will then, that will go there, I think it's going to be very difficult. And at the end of the day, it's, if you are a gay person that is there, that says, this law is going to make me not become your MP, I think it's going to be really difficult, but we just keep fighting the fight then.
I don't think it is quite very moving, the fact that, we've got that there were so many straight allies who were there, and it also, especially women, and it also reminds like, yeah, us gay activists, we're not always there when people involved in other movements ask us for support. So we also have to support other movements, huh? Yeah. Hey, Joshua, do you want to?
I mean, just a couple of words. It's been a journey for me also. I mean, from leading a pretty Singaporean lifestyle, 9-to-5 job, suddenly I got into knowing people in this community. Since 2005, I remember how things have changed. I was in the council and there were fights with the government. I think there was a session before this when you all discussed about, concerts being cancelled, events being cancelled, And I remember in the council we were with good friends and support from church members. We were always trying to fight for a cause for the LGBT people. So I've seen Pink Dot grown from like a handful of people in 2009 to now it's huge. I remember there was enough space at Hong Lim Park for a few other demonstrations to happen. It's just like there was so few people wearing pink in 2009, but it has grown. But I hope this becomes a more. It brings more. I was just talking to somebody who was a member of the church also. He was saying, I was asking him whether do you find the society as a whole more open? And he said it's open, maybe not, but more aware. Maybe,
Yeah.
So that's my.
All right. Thank you so much.